Daniel Harper stood in the dark hallway of his uncle's home in Maplewood, staring at nothing, yet feeling like everything around him had suddenly gained meaning. The house was quiet, but it was not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that made a person hear their own thoughts louder than usual. The wooden floor beneath his feet was cold, and the air carried the faint scent of old books and evening tea. His uncle Robert had already gone to sleep. Daniel had heard his slow footsteps an hour earlier, steady and predictable, just like the man himself. Robert was a man who trusted routine. He believed routine kept life safe, but Daniel had learned. Sometimes routine only hides what people refuse to face. Daniel had not planned to be here. Just a few months ago, he had lived in Chicago, surrounded by noise, tall buildings, and a life that once felt certain. He had a career, a woman he loved, and plans for a future that seemed clear. But everything had changed faster than he could understand. His engagement had ended with words that still echoed in his mind. She had told him she felt nothing anymore. No anger, no hate, just emptiness. That kind of honesty had broken him more than lies ever could. He left the city soon, after carrying only what he needed, and came here because he had nowhere else to go. His uncle had welcomed him without hesitation. Robert had always been kind in a quiet way. He was not the type to ask deep questions or give emotional advice. He simply gave Daniel a room, a warm meal, and space to breathe. Sometimes that was enough. Linda, Robert's wife, had also been kind, but her kindness felt different. It felt careful, like she was protecting something fragile inside herself. She smiled often, but her smile never lasted long. Eyes always seemed to carry thoughts she never spoke. At first, Daniel did not notice these things. He was too focused on his own pain. Each day he tried to rebuild himself. He woke early, drank coffee alone, and searched for work online. He went for walks through the quiet streets, watching strangers live their lives without knowing his story. At night, he returned to the same quiet house where everything remained unchanged. But slowly he began to see more. He noticed how Linda sometimes stood by the window long after dinner, staring outside as if she were waiting for something that never came. He noticed how Robert rarely looked at her when he spoke, not because he was cruel, but because he had stopped thinking about looking. Their conversations were polite, calm, and empty of emotion. They spoke like two people who respected each other, but no longer reached for each other. Daniel knew that kind of distance. He had lived it. That night, he could not sleep. His mind was restless, filled with memories he wished he could forget. He turned in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence. After a while, he gave up and got up to get water. He walked slowly, careful not to make noise, respecting the quiet life his uncle had built. As he reached the stairs, he saw something unexpected. A soft light glowed in the living room. He paused. His first thought was that Robert had woken up, but Robert never broke his routine. Daniel moved closer, his steps slow and uncertain. When he reached the corner, he saw Linda sitting on the couch alone. Her face was lit by her phone screen. She looked different. Not the calm, polite woman he saw every day. Her expression was open, emotional, and unguarded. Her eyes moved across the screen with deep focus. There was sadness there, but also something else, something alive. Daniel froze, unsure if he should leave or speak. Then Linda looked up. Their eyes met. For a second, neither of them moved. Her expression changed instantly. She locked her phone and straightened her posture. "Oh," she said softly, "I didn't know you were awake." Her voice was gentle, but Daniel could hear tension beneath it. "I couldn't sleep," Daniel replied. She nodded slowly. "Some nights are like that." Daniel felt like he had stepped into something private without meaning to. He did not want to make her uncomfortable. He turned slightly, ready to leave. But then he saw her face again. She looked tired, not physically, but emotionally. It was the look of someone carrying feelings for a long time. He stopped. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. The question hung between them. Linda looked down at her hands. Her fingers moved slightly, as if she were deciding whether to speak or remain silent. Most people would have said yes. Most people would have hidden the truth. Linda did not. She took a slow breath. "Do you ever feel like your life became something you didn't choose?" she asked. Daniel felt the question deeply. It was not just a question, it was a confession. "Yes," he answered honestly. She looked at him, surprised by his honesty. For a moment, they were not uncle and nephew by marriage. They were simply to people who understood loss. "I used to believe love stayed the same," she said softly. "I thought once two people found each other, they would never lose that feeling." Her voice carried both memory and pain. Daniel listened carefully. "But life changes people," she continued. "And sometimes they don't notice it happening." Daniel thought about his former fiancée. How their conversations had slowly become shorter, how their laughter had faded, how silence had replaced everything they once shared. He understood exactly what she meant. Linda gave a small smile, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind people use when they accept something they cannot fix. "Robert is a good man," she said. Daniel nodded. He knew this was not something she needed him to solve. She just needed someone to hear her. Upstairs, Robert slept peacefully, unaware of the emotions moving quietly through his home. And it was because, in that moment, he realized something important. Loneliness did not always mean being alone. They sat in silence for a few seconds. Then Linda stood. "You should get some rest," she said gently. Daniel nodded. As he walked back to his room, his thoughts felt heavier. He lay down, staring at the ceiling again. But now his thoughts were not about his own heartbreak. They were about something else. He thought about Robert, who believed his life was complete. He thought about Linda, who sat awake while her husband slept. He thought about how easily people could hide their true feelings. And he wondered how long it had been this way. House was quiet again. He closed his eyes, but sleep did not come easily. Because deep inside he felt something had changed. He had seen something real, not betrayal, not yet. But the beginning of something fragile, something hidden. A story that had been growing slowly in silence. Story he had only just begun to discover. Morning arrived quietly over the small town of Maplewood, but Daniel Harper woke with a strange weight in his chest. He had slept, but his mind had not rested. The conversation with Linda the night before stayed with him. Her voice, her honesty, and the sadness she had tried to hide kept returning to his thoughts. He sat up slowly in the guest room, staring at the pale sunlight entering through the curtains. For the first time since arriving at his uncle's house, he felt like more than a visitor. He felt like a witness to something fragile. Downstairs, he heard the normal sounds of morning, the clink of a coffee cup, the soft movement of footsteps. Life continued as usual. When Daniel entered the kitchen, Robert was already sitting at the table reading the newspaper. He looked calm, relaxed, and unaware of anything beyond his daily routine. He greeted Daniel with a warm smile. "Morning, Daniel. Sleep well?" Daniel forced a small smile. "Yeah, it was fine." Linda stood near the counter, pouring coffee. She looked peaceful, but Daniel could see the difference now. Her calmness was not natural. It was controlled. She turned and handed Robert his cup. Their hands touched briefly, but neither of them reacted. It was a small moment, but it said everything. Daniel watched them carefully. He saw how Robert focused on his newspaper instead of her. He saw how Linda looked at him for a second longer than he looked at her. It was not anger, it was absence. They ate breakfast together, speaking about simple things. The weather, a neighbor's new fence, a grocery list. No one spoke about feelings. No one spoke about truth. Daniel realized something painful. Some relationships do not break suddenly. They slowly become quiet. That day passed like any other. Robert spent time in his study. Linda cleaned the house. Daniel searched for jobs online. Everything looked normal on the surface. But Daniel could feel something deeper moving beneath it. That evening, after dinner, Robert went upstairs earlier than usual. He looked tired. He wished them good night and disappeared into his room. Footsteps faded, and soon the house returned to silence. Linda stayed behind in the kitchen, washing dishes slowly. Daniel stood near the doorway, unsure whether to stay or leave. He could see her reflection in the window. She looked lost in thought. After finishing, she dried her hands and walked into the living room. Daniel waited a few minutes before following. He did not know why he felt drawn to her sadness, but he did. She stood near the window. Holding her phone, her face changed as she looked at the screen. Daniel froze when he saw her expression. It was not sadness this time. It was warmth. It was life. She looked younger. Hope lived in her eyes. Then she noticed him. Her body stiffened slightly, but she did not hide her phone. They stood in silence. "I didn't mean to interrupt," Daniel said quietly. "You didn't," she replied. Her voice was calm, but her heart was not. She walked to the couch and sat down. After a moment, Daniel sat across from her. She stared at her phone, then slowly placed it beside her. "There are things people carry inside," she said softly. "Things they never planned." Daniel listened carefully. "I met someone years ago," she continued. "It was a time when I felt invisible. Robert and I were already drifting apart. Not because of anger, it's because of distance." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "He listened to me. He saw me. He reminded me that I was still alive inside." Daniel understood the power of being seen. It was something everyone needed, but not everyone received. "His name is Michael," she said. She spoke the name with both comfort and pain. Daniel did not interrupt. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she continued. "I never wanted to create secrets, but loneliness changes people. It makes them search for something they cannot find at home." Her eyes filled with emotion. Daniel could see the truth in her face. She was not proud. She was not careless. She was human. "Do you love him?" Daniel asked carefully. She closed her eyes briefly. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "I care about him. He reminds me of who I was before I forgot myself." Her words were not filled with excitement. They were filled with confusion. "And Robert?" Daniel asked. She looked toward the staircase. "I care about Robert too," she said. "He gave me years of stability. He trusted me. He still trusts me." Her voice trembled. "That's what makes this so hard." Daniel realized love was not always simple. Sometimes it lived in two places at once. "I haven't done anything wrong," she added quickly. "Not in the way people think, but emotionally. I crossed a line inside myself." Daniel believed her. She was not chasing a new life. She was searching for her lost self. Days passed, and Daniel watched carefully. He saw Robert living peacefully, unaware of the emotional storm beside him. He saw Linda moving through her days with quiet strength. She smiled, she cooked, she cared, but something inside her remained divided. Daniel began to understand something important. People do not plan to grow apart. It happens slowly through silence, routine, and forgotten moments. One evening, Daniel sat outside on the porch. The air was cool, and the sky was painted with soft colors. Linda joined him after a while. They sat together without speaking. "I never wanted my life to become complicated," she said finally. "No one does," Daniel replied. She looked at the street ahead. "I think the hardest part isn't choosing between people," she said. "It's choosing between truth and comfort." Daniel felt the weight of her words. "What will you do?" he asked. She took a deep breath. "I don't know yet, but I know I can't live pretending forever." Daniel respected her honesty. He realized she was not a villain. She was a person standing at the edge of a decision. Weeks later, Daniel received a job offer back in Chicago. It was not perfect, but it was a beginning. He knew it was time to leave. On his last morning, Robert hugged him tightly. "I'm proud of you," Robert said. "You're stronger than you think." Daniel felt emotion rise inside him. "Thank you for everything," Daniel replied. Linda hugged him next. Her hug was gentle but meaningful. "Take care of yourself," she whispered. He nodded, their eyes met for a final moment. No words were needed. They understood each other. Daniel left the house and placed his bags in the car. He looked at the home one last time. It looked peaceful, just as it always had. But now he knew the truth. Peace was not always what it seemed as he drove away. He thought about everything he had learned. He thought about love. He thought about loneliness. He thought about how easily people hide their hearts. He realized something that changed him forever. Infidelity. It's not always about actions. Sometimes it began with emotions left unattended. Sometimes it began with silence. And sometimes the greatest pain was not betrayal, but the moment someone realized they had been invisible for far too long behind him. The house remained quiet. Robert continued believing in the life he knew. Linda remained inside, holding her truth, standing between loyalty and honesty, and Daniel drove forward, carrying a story that had no clear ending. Only understanding, only truth, only the quiet knowledge that love must be cared for. Or it slowly fades into silence.